Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm your host, Henry Clavo, CEO and founder of Orlando Insight Group. Each episode, we dive into real conversations with technology leaders, innovators, and experts who are shaping the future of IT and data and cybersecurity. Our goal is simple to give you practical insights to real world strategies and expert perspectives that you can use to drive smarter decisions and stronger results for your business. Thank you for being here this evening and joining us, and let's get started. We have a special guest today. Her name is Shenoa Simpson, a seasoned executive and consultant with over 15 years of experience leading transformations initiatives at the intersections of strategy, technology, and regulation. Her career spans leadership roles in consulting at KPMG, PwC, and Genpact, senior positions in financial services with Citi, Societe Generale, and Raymond James, and nearly a decade of service as a U.S. diplomat. Wow. Shenoa specializes in AI and digital innovation, data-driven strategy, and regulatory compliance with a proven track record of guiding organizations through complex change with clarity and measurable results. She holds an MBA in finance and strategy from Georgetown University and a BA in international political economy from the University of Minnesota. So thank you, Shenoa, for joining us today. We're happy to have you here today. Yeah, uh, we could get started.
Thanks, Henry. I'm so pleased to be on your show, and thanks for having me. And I look forward to our conversation because I think we've had great conversations so far.
That's great. Starting with strategy and insights, you worked across consulting and financial services and government. What's one transformation truth that applies to every organization, no matter what industry you're in?
That's a great question. I think having seen all kinds of different projects even in different countries, my one comment would be that everyone kind of worships the strategy and the end state of where they want to get to. I'd say if you include the sales part or the pitches and the ideas, people spend so much time on what the end state looks like. But when it comes to the execution, there's not as much time and effort put into it because as you start to come across different problems or things that are unexpected, the impetus is to overcome it, just get past it so that you can get to the end state. And I think one of the most important things that you learn during a transformation is that there are unexpected things that come up that need to be dealt with. And the better that they're dealt with at the time, the more successful the outcome. And people time and time again forget that. I think it's easy to think about it in terms of project management and getting to like A to B to C, like a waterfall, but it's probably more agile, I would say.
Yeah, I see where you're going. You must be prepared for success or everything falls apart in a sense.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
In your view, what makes a data or AI initiative truly stand out rather than just becoming just another project, as you mentioned before?
Yeah, no, I think that it's good that you point out like AI and data are different because it's increasingly becoming evident. I would say a lot of people are starting to realize that the problem wasn't with their systems, but now it was actually with their data to begin with. And sometimes you start with the systems in mind or the tech stack, but then you forget that it actually starts somewhere further deeper into your data and whether or not it's clean and how it's being collected, because it's a lot of effort. Also, AI is very different because it's a different productivity and it integrates differently than other programs when you're trying to build it into your systems. The backbone of AI is really data. So we can talk about the features and what it does, but at the end of the day, if you don't start with really good, clean data, you're never going to get an AI tool or feature that functions properly. And there's a lot of promises made about how much productivity it can deliver, or what kind of value it can bring to an organization.
Mm.
But like I kind of said before, it's everybody's focused on the end state. They worship the AI.
Yes.
And then they forget about that they have to go back and get to that journey, go through the journey, and the data is the journey.
Exactly. I've seen cartoons on LinkedIn where everybody's screaming for AI, but no one, everyone's raising their hands, and then we want data quality. Who's going to do the work? They don't raise their hands. So it is a way to avoid responsibility as well as avoid the essence of what goes under the hood.
Yeah, exactly. And you've had experience with that, right?
Yeah. So from my perspective, I've seen organizations are not prepared to go through that journey. Have you seen? What's your take on organizations currently, in your current experience and your past experience, on data preparation at a high level?
Oh, that's an interesting question, especially when you said high level.
We
I
don't,
know a little bit.
yeah, we want to get technical, but yeah, yeah. Don't
Yeah,
expand on the technicalities, but keep it general. Yeah.
yeah, no, of course. I think at the high level, a lot of people, let's just face it, talking about data isn't very sexy. So when you're talking about strategy and you're really focused on the market and how it's moving on the street and where you're going to get your funding, or
Mm.
trying to explain where your organization is going, data just kind of seems to fall to the wayside. It's always been considered something that's back office operations. So it hasn't always been interesting to the front office until recently. And I think as we start to get into AI and people start to think about where that information comes from, there's been this realization that, well, what I have is only as good as what's going into it. So where is this coming from? Where is this, especially generative AI, where's this output coming from? I've seen in a lot of organizations this desire to clean up your data. I'm not going to say exactly which ones, but especially in the financial sector, there's just been this, I suppose it's an underestimation of the data. And over the last 20 years, it's just kind of accumulated. So there's been more and more and more, and no real thought process of how to do it or where it's going or how it works in the system. It's kind of like, treating a wound. Like if you have a wound, you take care of it, but if you can't see it, then you don't necessarily deal with it. And it's come to bite a lot of big banks and in a lot of ways, because regulators have come down and said, well, this mistake was due to your data. And so that poses regulatory fines, and trying to fix it is harder than it looks. I know, one organization that spent probably the last 4 or 5 years trying to fix a problem. But again, they were trying to fix a problem that they thought was more strategic.
Mm.
And then after 4 or 5 years into this transformation, they realized it was about the data and the problem hadn't been fixed yet. So there were several more years to go. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's usually a organization focused on priorities, but that really makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
And moving on to, what's the trend in AI and data transformation you're excited about?
I think one of the trends in AI and data transformation that I'm really excited about is the whole idea of using sentiment analysis. I know most people probably say agentic AI or something like that. I mean, agentic AI is interesting. I think the one that really stands out for me that sets AI apart from everything else is using a sentiment analysis tool. And I think that it really came to the forefront when we saw ChatGPT update its mode of thinking, because when the new release of ChatGPT came out, everybody was upset that they lost their friend. And why is it that they felt like they lost their friend and they didn't like using it anymore? It was because of sentiment analysis. So ChatGPT thought, they had a great tool. They still do have a great tool, but they thought, okay, the next iteration of this is that we want AI to be smart. We want it to be as smart as possible, rather than thinking we want this to be as relatable as possible. And I think, to me, that underscores how important sentiment analysis really is.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you touch upon that point. OpenAI recently, a couple months ago or 5 months back, they removed their own models and they replaced it with ChatGPT 5, and it caused a lot of uproar. And at the same time, people that were attached to it also lost a friend. So it would be interesting to see what would be the type of chats or sentiment that they develop over time. So that I found that very fascinating.
How did you feel about it? What did you think of the new ChatGPT?
It's great because it took some aspects of DeepSeek, like the reasoning, and implemented and made it more faster and more agile. So that's one I found. And then the cons of that is it's not very efficient in providing a good response or good answer. So that was something that was interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
So moving on, for professionals in data and tech, building visibility can feel daunting. Where should someone start if they want to become known for their expertise?
That's a good question. I think people tend to focus on what they don't know. And the difference is the AI is going to really level the field. Like, you won't need to have the technical competency you did like for Y2K. I mean, you won't need to be coding or anything like that. You can do vibe coding now. I know everybody says there's pros and cons to vibe coding. The fact that you can do it is really interesting, even if you wanted to come up with a prototype for an idea. And so I think it starts to level the playing field. You really need to focus on the problem. So anyone that wants to get into AI or tech needs to think about the problem that they want to solve, or the business proposition that they want to have. For example, if you wanted to come up with something that required coding, you could always try to figure it out on your own now, which is unusual, as opposed to before, when you would have to find professionals to help you. And then you could potentially develop it from there. I wouldn't say that vibe coding develops like an end state by any sort of the imagination, but the idea that people can now participate more in AI and technology is a great possibility. It's a huge leap forward, I think. What do you think?
Yes. So it does open the gates to people who were unable to get into technology or be part of it. Now it's become more accessible. And now with this subscription, you have a chatbot model and you have access to APIs. So I think technology will grow. We do see challenges, but I don't know. I wanted to get your view. And now that we have this technology, we have vibe coders. Everybody can product do a product development faster and quicker and ship it out in 2 days, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
What advice would you give to data professionals who want to build their personal brand while still working full time in demanding roles? Well, I know that you've held so many roles in many different organizations, so this would be very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to help people to develop their ideas and kind of progress their careers forward. I think it's important to, pay it forward, so to speak. Right now, like, I'm working with JT O'Donnell, who is an influencer that's been on LinkedIn for a long time, and she's a wonderful mentor. She had a program called Work It Daily, and now she's gone to Pro Voices, which is great because it helps you to develop your executive presence and your branding. I think what I recommend is, I liked her name for her company, that's Work It Daily, because that's what you have to do to build your brand. Is you can't just imagine an end state, kind of like I was saying before, like this is what I want to achieve, and then just do it all in one weekend. You kind of have to think about it every day and plan out steps that help you get there. And it is a discovery. Like I've been working with her since 2020, so around COVID. In one way or another, I kind of bounced out and then bounced back. And then with Pro Voices, I've probably been doing it since April, I would say. And we have meetings like twice a week. I'm doing something every single day, especially on weekends, not during business hours, I would say, like in the evenings or whatever. But, a little bit every day makes a difference. Because if I look back at my videos when I first started, I feel pretty silly.
Oh,
But
it's you got to start somewhere, and you have to. I'll quote somebody. JP would used to say, "If you're not willing to risk to look like a fool, you would never grow." So, it is a badge of honor to see this video, see yourself, and be able to say, "I made progress."
yeah, absolutely. It's you kind of got to get out of your own head, right? Like otherwise you never do it, so you just got to do it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Now we'll go and talk about your background, consultant, and your career experience. How was your experience at firms like KPMG, Pricewaterhouse, and Cooper, and Jetpack shaped the way you now approach a client challenges?
Yeah, I think all of them were very unique. When I was at
Mm.
KPMG and PwC, I was actually in the UK, which is slightly different because I had to learn to work in a different culture too, which people don't think that the UK is a different culture, but it was quite different. Also working in Europe as well, so I was working in a lot of in a different environment, I suppose, than just an American environment. It was great because I think they have a really well developed way of training people. Like those accounting firms have been around for a really long time there, especially in the UK. And the way that they encourage people to train and develop on a regular basis, kind of like we were talking about that branding thing, like you got to work it all the time. The great thing about consulting is it's about learning.
Mm.
And so it's almost like taking a class, and then the head of your consulting project is your professor. And so you're working through the problem with what you know. But I really learned teamwork, how to deal with really tough situations. I would say people think that consulting is about what you produce for the client.
Right.
It's not. A lot of it's the relationship management along the way, right? Like as well. It's a process. I suppose I could give a really good example. It's kind of a funny example. I was working on a project with KPMG, and it was at Portsmouth Naval Base, which is the oldest naval base in the world. It was fascinating because they had their own archaeologist, and they were finding things from World War II and the Napoleonic Wars because they were redoing the whole site. So there was this captain who was, not really happy that we were there because he didn't want to cut costs. He was telling us how all these buildings were built by prisoners during the Victorian era. So that's why his roof blew away one day. So, and so we had to manage that relationship in order to do the project that we were doing. And it ended up being really successful because at the end of the day, we won him over, and we kind of ended up doing some work for him too. But it's interesting how you learn in consulting that there's blockers and how to overcome and get towards the project. And it isn't even about the analysis in the first place, right?
No. Yeah, it's always about people and your close proximity and building that relationship, so it makes the process smoother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How long were you in the UK, and was being in the UK work related?
Yeah, so I was in the UK for about 5 years, and it was interesting. I kind of just wanted to live there and see what it was like. Like I've been in the foreign service, but it can be really hard in the foreign service to get an assignment to the UK because it's so competitive.
Mm.
So I thought it would be fun to just, after the foreign service, live there. And I enjoyed it. I ended up being there during Brexit, which was really fascinating because I thought when I left the foreign service that I would never use my experience in trade policy again.
Yeah.
But I actually ended up being the only person who could help train their civil service on how to do trade policy negotiations.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So it was fortuitous, I suppose, to be there at that point in time. I think I did that for about a couple of years. I helped them to, I worked with other people who had been trade negotiators on NAFTA. So a woman from Mexico, a guy from Mexico, and another guy from Canada. And so we told stories about what it was like to do our different trade work. I didn't work on NAFTA. I worked mainly with South Asia, but people, like I had this whole class that I did, an executive course. I'd never done an executive course before, but I did it. And they enjoyed my teaching so much that I kept coming back over and over again. And I kind of felt like I had like a group of students like that I was mentoring, and I really enjoyed it.
That's collegiate, back in the space that you're familiar, and yeah, yeah, it's great that you contributed to their foreign office. That's excuse me, their civil service. That's pretty cool. Right. Thank you for sharing that experience. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was really cool. I'd like to think that they took their learnings and did more with it. So
Is there in the future, you accomplish everything? Will you go back to public service or work for opportunities outside of the United States?
that's a really good question. I never, I feel like kind of like a corporate backpacker. Like I've always kind of gotten from some opportunities to other opportunities, and I never really know where in the world I'll be or, where I'll be working next. I think public service is really important because I think it's important to shape the world you're in and participate in it. So I encourage people to participate, whether it doesn't matter if it's local or state or federal or, an international organization. I think it's important to participate and kind of see how ideas and concepts are developed and, try to learn how to participate. I guess that's the way I would describe it. For me, I would always work overseas. I'm a British citizen now, so I'm British and American. So unfortunately, I can't work in Europe, but it's nice to have at least those two. I would still work anywhere. I would just look at opportunities as an adventure. Like I think life gets boring if you stop thinking of it as an adventure. Like AI is an adventure. Who knows what adventure is next? And I guess my future self will find out.
I think you could do more now that you have that background in as a civil servant and international experience, and now with AI, that could expand your horizons and see where that leads. So, yeah, keep an open mind, as I said.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks. I appreciate it.
And then I guess we'll end with a fun and fast and fun questions. What's one thing you wish more people in data and I understood about transformation projects?
What do I wish they understood more about transformation projects? I think when you think about a project and you think about project management, you think about tasks and accomplishing tasks and just checking boxes. I guess what I wish they understood more is that it actually is not about the tasks at all. It's about people and relationships. It looks like it's a task. It looks like you're accomplishing what somebody wrote down, but at the end of the day, it's a conversation and an understanding. And whether or not you are able to be successful is entirely dependent on your ability to navigate that. And I wouldn't put it as like, oh, we all have to get along and be kumbaya and everybody's nice to each other. you just have to have really good boundaries and also be able to deliver tough messages really well, and not be afraid to have really difficult conversations. Because if you kind of avoid that, if you avoid those whole interactions, then, and that's a part of the relationship process, then I think you don't realize the end state. Like, that's a really good way to think about it. There's kind of this framework that's like storming, something norming and performing. Anyway, you go through this whole process. And I said to people on a project that I was on once, they were like, oh, everybody's kind of has these different views because they come from different backgrounds and they're at each other a little bit. And I said, that's actually not necessarily a bad thing. That's kind of the storming part, where you're, kind of butting heads with each other and trying to figure out where you're going. But sometimes those are opportunities to create something that didn't exist before, and the best ideas. Like, I've done that before at on a project. Like, we were always butting heads, but at the end of the day, we created a best practice that I've never seen before.
Mm.
And it's kind of nice to do that, right?
Yeah, it's a process, and you have to be on it. To end, I guess this one is for the data community. And what's a tool, framework, or platform that you can't live without right now in your work?
I would say a tool, platform, or framework. I would say a framework. Like, this is going to sound silly. Occam's razor. Like, the simplest explanation is the right explanation. And it sounds kind of ridiculous, but I think in a world where you can build out processes and governance, and it can go on and on, like, you can build it to infinity. You have to think about trying to solve the problem and get back to the simplest way to do it as possible. Because I feel like there's just too much complexity. So, like, while I think there's a lot of different tools out there I'd love to use, like, I like to call out Smartsheet is probably my favorite over Excel in terms of, it's an amazing tool. I don't know why Smartsheet hasn't taken off more, but I think the way you think about things has more of an impact. The tools are just there to help get you there. And if you can just simplify, you're probably going to be more successful than if you try to complicate.
I agree. Most of the work for consultants in general is to come in and fix the technical debt or the strategy debt that one left behind after the end of a project. So I'm there with you, Shenoa.
Yeah, you've been through it too, right?
Yes. Well, Shenoa, we reached the end of our time, but I would like to thank you for coming on the Orlando Insights podcast. We would love for you to come back again and share your next adventure, hopefully in Europe or some other region of the world.
Yeah, thank you so much, Henry, for having me. And I think that you have a fantastic organization with Orlando Insights. I really appreciate what you're doing. I think that thought leadership and bring it, different ideas and perspective to the people's attention is really important. And so I'd love to come back and be on your podcast again. And if we can collaborate in any kind of ways, I'd look forward to that as well.
My door's always open, and you're always welcome back. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. To catch more podcasts, please visit our socials on Orlando Insight Group on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. And also, Shenoa, where can they find you? Online?
Oh, yeah. So you can find me by Shenoa Simpson, and you can find me on LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Well,